Hello everyone, my name is Alison Lyles. I am the programme leader of our postgraduate MSc entry into dietetics. I am also a practicing dietitian. I also work in NHS Lothian as a dietitian, and by trade I'm a renal dietitian, so hopefully I bring that sort of practical element to the course itself. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the information that you might need for applying for the postgraduate MSc in dietetics, and then I think we'll have some time for some questions afterwards. Okay. So just to get started, so what is dietetics? I expect some of you will have already done a little bit of research into this if you've already reached this point of coming to the postgraduate open day. But just to give you a little bit more information, dietitians are the only qualified healthcare professionals that assess, diagnose and treat dietary and nutritional problems at an individual but also a public health provider level. They work with both healthy individuals but also those individuals that aren't well, and they also work with everyone from obviously all ages, so from birth all the way up to older age. And they translate up-to-date scientific research into practical guidance to enable people to make appropriate lifestyle and food choices. Obviously, there's some images here that represent probably some of the most common things that we see as dietitians. So obviously, giving advice to those individuals that perhaps are overnourished, that maybe need to lose some weight. We also work a lot with those that are undernourished and perhaps need to try and build themselves up, perhaps after a period of illness, or perhaps they're trying to not to lose more weight due to an illness that's affecting them at the moment. And then those other two images are maybe more relating to the kind of clinical side of dietetics. We work with a range of different conditions. We work with obviously a very wide range of different individuals, but some of the kind of information and some of the things that we advise on might relate to things like tube feeding. So those individuals that maybe need to be fed through a tube, we would advise on that. And also hospital food is something else that we are often involved in, as is the idea of sort of texture modified diets for those individuals that maybe have problems with swallowing. So it's a very wide range of advice and guidance that we provide, but this is sort of some of the common types of individuals that we might be working with. So what are the entry requirements? So as you may or may not have already found out, for the postgraduate course in dietetics, we expect that you have an undergraduate degree, a BSc honours degree, 2-1 or above. It's a competitive course, so we ask that you have this as a prerequisite for coming onto the course. And we expect that your honours degree also would include some modules in human physiology and biochemistry. These are also prerequisite for the course. For international students, we'd expect an IELTS of greater than 7 with no individual component score of less than 6.5. And the real main crux of your application, and this is what is effectively going to stand you out and stand you in good stead for getting offered a place in this quite competitive course, is your personal statement. So spend time writing your personal statement, and these are some of my tips for you. So your personal statement should really illustrate the understanding of the role of the dietitian. So doing a bit more research into the role of the dietitian will stand you in good stead. To consider the skills and attributes required to work as a dietitian. So again, looking into that job as a dietitian, what skills and attributes would you expect somebody who's working as a dietitian to have? And then thinking about work experience. Now, we understand that work experience and shadowing is very challenging to gain that work experience as a dietitian, particularly in the current climate. So we don't expect that you've had work experience or shadowing as an essential requirement. Obviously, if you've had some, it'd be very relevant to put that in your personal statement, but we certainly don't view that as an essential requirement. However, considering some of these skills and attributes required to work as a dietitian, we would expect that you highlight some of these transferable skills that are perhaps related to the work as a dietitian, and really highlight those from your own personal and professional experiences that you may have. The other additional conditions of entry into the course are that you have a PVG certificate. So this is a Detecting Vulnerable Groups certificate, and you would normally have that upon entry. If there's problems surrounding that with regards to PVG certification, then that may obviously present some problems with regards to a condition for entry. We also ask that you are occupationally fit to practice, so this would involve an occupational health check. This is a prerequisite of the Healthcare Professions Council, so we need to ensure that you are fit to practice before you start the course. Hep B vaccination may well be offered off the back of this. You'll be potentially going into a healthcare environment to do some placements, so Hep B vaccination might be offered to you. And also we expect that you have professional indemnity insurance upon starting the course, and this is usually provided through membership, student membership of the British Dietetic Association, and that's certainly somewhere to signpost if you're looking for a bit more information about dietetics in general. So how about the course structure? So the postgraduate course is a modular programme. It is quite a condensed programme and it's quite intensive. So it's quite a full-on couple of years, but it's a very rewarding and interesting couple of years. So it's an MSc. You're required to work through 320 academic credits to obtain the Masters of Science. It requires 2 years full-time time being a student, and within that we have 5 20-credit modules and 2 40-credit modules which you work through in your second year. In addition to that, we've got 3 practice placements, the A, B and C placements, which are also credit bearing within that overall 320 credit. And this gives you an overview of what you would expect to be studying in the different years of the course. So year 1 is broken down into effectively 3 semesters, so semester 1 and 2 at the kind of more traditional academic times, and then semester 3 is effectively over the summer between years 1 and 2. So you wouldn't normally have an academic break between the 2 years. It may well be there's a few weeks off, but certainly not the traditional summer off. So in semester 1, you would expect to encounter the essentials of dietetic management. So this is thinking about the way that we manage dietetics and how effectively we work through the process associated with dietetic care. You'd also expect to include a nutrition course, so nutrition through the life course, and then a course that's relating to some of the sort of clinical aspects of our dietetic study, and that's called disease etiology and management. You can see the introduction to dietetic practice, so placement A is delivered, some of it, the campus weeks are delivered in semester 1, and then the more practice weeks are delivered in semester 2, so this is when you'd go out on practice placement. Later on in semester 2, you'd also be looking at dietetic management of long-term conditions. This is where we get to explore some of the conditions in relation to dietetic management, and also there's a module on epidemiology in public health. In semester 3, so as I mentioned before, in that break between year 1 and 2, in that summer period, you would be expecting to be going out on your placement B, which we refer to developing dietetic practice. This is a work-based placement. And there's also another module that runs alongside this called innovative and emerging practice. So then we're entering into the second year of studies. These are the two aspects of year two. So applying skills of critical inquiry would be effectively in the first half of year two, where you would be undertaking a research project associated with the MSc. And then the later part of year two would be your consolidating dietetic practice. That's the final and third practice work-based placement. So just a bit more word upon the dietetic placements, which I've obviously outlined in green in that previous slide. These are effectively the work-based placements that are arranged and embedded in your programme. So we have three of these placements. Placement A, which is normally undertaken, as I've mentioned, 2 weeks at Queen Margaret in semester 1 of year 1, and then 2 weeks in clinical practice during in the semester 2 of year 1. As I've mentioned before, the second placement, this is a 12-week placement. This occurs in the summer between years 1 and 2. And then the final C placement, that's again another 12-week placement in year 2, semester 2. And a little word on dietetic placements is that the placements are part of a national random allocation system that is specific to Scotland. The placements are all based in the NHS, and you would expect to visit a dietetic department in any of the health boards in Scotland. So placements can be anywhere in Scotland, all the way from the Highlands and Islands all the way down to the Scottish borders. So they can be anywhere, and they're allocated, generally speaking, on a random allocation system. So students generally are placed randomly in that. Within this, we can match certain individuals to certain areas of Scotland, so individual circumstances can be considered, but these are predominantly for if an individual was considered to be a primary carer, perhaps for family, young children, or perhaps for health needs. The course is delivered through a variety of different means of learning and teaching. So you can see here we do a variety of things, including sort of lectures, more traditional lectures. We also have a number of seminars and hands-on tutorials where we're kind of looking at case studies and working through different patients. We have cooking, and we have fantastic cooking laboratories, so there's some aspects of sort of cooking and catering. There can be some lab work, food skills, and obviously at master's level we'd be expecting a certain aspect of sort of self-study and self-directed learning. And with regards to assessment, we use a balance of different methods for this. There are examinations, both written and practical. We have an oral clinical skills exam that we assess individuals on, as well as the more traditional written examinations. There are certainly some written assignments associated with different modules, so that would be essays and perhaps other types, some presentations. And then some of the more formative assessment means we have individual and group projects on a week-by-week basis, and some individual and group presentations. These are the things that you would expect to develop over your time with us studying on the postgraduate programme in dietetics. We normally support development of both oral and written communication skills. Obviously, effective group working is embedded into a lot of our modules, working with others and considering the skills that are associated with that. Creative thinking and problem solving certainly runs through a lot of the teaching. Ability to critically evaluate information is master's level, something that's very important. So that's certainly something that you will be developing. Data analysis and interpretation is certainly something that you will be working on, particularly through that aspect of your projects, but also thinking about some of those skills in the clinical setting as well. IT skills you would expect to develop. Independence of learning, as I've mentioned, at master's level is certainly embedded, and learning and study skills are obviously two other things that are very important. So what about employment prospects? We have extremely good graduate employment rates from this programme. Most of our graduates find work very easily, and most of our graduates tend to seek employment within the National Health Service. But obviously there are other opportunities in public health. Dietitians work in a wide variety of different settings. Some individuals go off and work in the food industry. Some work in health education and promotion. Some people go into private practice, private healthcare. Some of our graduates have ended up working at sort of government advisory level, and certainly there are also opportunities within the food and pharmaceutical industries whereby the formulation of nutritional supplements, dietitians are also involved in that, both at formulation level but also at sales level. A quick word on research then. So there are a variety of research activities in areas related to dietetics, nutrition and food sciences, and this is certainly something that you would come across within your master's research project. Staff research and scholarly activity enrich the teaching, and certainly a number of our staff are research active and certainly pull that through to their teaching. And the research projects may relate to personal staff research in some circumstances, and we do have, obviously, for those projects that have been excellent, there has always been opportunities to present at conferences and potentially publish papers. We do also have some graduates that choose to stay on and do PhDs after their masters, so that's also an opportunity that you might want to think about. And just finally, these are some of the other things that you might also expect from your time at Queen Margaret. So some of the additional support that we provide over and above the things that I have discussed up till now. So personal academic tutors, we assign a personal academic tutor for every student entering into study at Queen Margaret, and this is effectively your mentor, somebody that you would go to with regards to all aspects of your academic studies. We also have an initiative within the Queen Margaret dietetic community called Students for Students, which is a wider dietetic community whereby we enable all of our students from the undergraduate and postgraduate programs to work together and share their experiences. There's a social aspect to that, but also it can be more of a sort of mentorship idea. You'll have to excuse me, my cat is meowing in the background here, so sorry if that's coming through to you all. We've also got the school office who offer a lot of additional support on course administration, student information, a lot of information about placements and some of the more kind of administrative things that go alongside your studies. We have an academic disabled student coordinator. We also have a very extensive student support service, variety of services which runs all the way from careers advice to health and well-being support, to counselling, to effective learning and sort of those aspects relating to academic study and support with regards to essay writing and we also have a very good library service as well that you can tap into. We have student representatives, so usually at the start of each programme we ask for nominations for students to represent the course and track effectively anything to do with the course, and that's our main quality improvement aspect to the course. And obviously, as you're aware, we also have a dedicated programme leader for our postgraduate degree, who is myself. And another, I suppose, more interesting aspect that is also relevant to Queen Margaret is the Dietetics and Nutrition Society. There is a student union society specific to dietetics and nutrition, and they quite often arrange sort of special interest presentations and sessions, more social sessions, I suppose, in relation to dietetics and nutrition. So that's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour guide to the postgraduate degree in dietetics, the MSc in dietetics. If anybody has any questions at all relating to the presentation or the course itself, please feel free to ask now. Okay, so there's a question here from Laura. Hello, Laura. Thank you for thanks for your question. You've said you've already done a master's and so have already done a postgraduate dissertation. If I chose to just pursue the PG DIP, would this affect my career prospects in any way? So the PG DIP is no longer running. It's only the MSc as an exit point for this course. So from 2021 for those students entering into 2021 cohort, there will be no exit point for the postgraduate diploma. It will only be for an MSc. So apologies if you've already done the master's dissertation. I suppose this would give you another opportunity to maybe do a project in something that's very relevant to dietetics. So I don't know if the second part of your question about pursuing the PG DIP affecting your career prospects is relevant, because it's not an option, I'm afraid, anymore. Has anybody got any more questions for me? Thanks, Laura. Okay, there's a couple more questions coming through. So what topics do students usually do for their dissertations? That's a very wide-ranging question. We have all sorts of things. Sometimes people are doing things more on a sort of health promotion aspect, so looking at availability of food. We've had topics on food literacy and health literacy. We've had topics relating to kind of celiac disease and FODMAP diets, but there's also been the opportunity to do more laboratory style projects relating to kind of food science and nutrition, but also kind of some of those more clinical aspects. We've had some looking at food analysis in relation to renal diets, so there's quite a lot of different range there. I'm just going to take each of these questions individually. So Molly, just bear with me. You're looking to apply from Ireland. You're wondering if students from Ireland would be regarded as international students due to Brexit, or will Irish students be able to avail of the usual fees? I don't know if anybody from admissions able to help me with that question, because I certainly don't know the answer to it.
I'll say, yeah, sure, I can just jump in there. Molly, I've actually typed in a reply to you on the chat box there, but essentially the decision on fees and Brexit, especially regarding Irish students, has not been finalised yet, but we will be updating our website, so do keep an eye on the link that I've just popped in the chat there for more information, and this page will be updated as soon as we've got a decision from that. It's kind of out of our hands a lot, to be honest. A lot of decisions by the government haven't been finalised, so yeah, we're working really hard to get more information as soon as possible out to all the students. But thank you, it's a really good question.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks for answering that. I'm just having a look at the next. So Alison's Rickney said, how many places are there in the course? This is usually dictated by our overall placement allocation. So we are capped at numbers because of placements. So usually speaking, we're sort of around about the 14, 15 students per intake, depending. So Sonda has actually answered that question for you. Yes, around about 14, 15 students is the absolute maximum. And you said, how many applications do we typically receive? How competitive is the course? So it's difficult to say. Those numbers do change year on year. I would say that we're looking at somewhere between 100 and 200 applications per year, but it's certainly not something to put you off. Everybody's treated completely equally, and certainly, obviously, your personal statement is a very key part of that application, as I've mentioned before. So Ian has said, does the student health bursary by NHS, will this be applicable to international students? I, again, can't answer that. I don't know if anybody's able to help me from admissions again.
To be honest, I'm not that familiar with that specific bursary. The best thing to do would probably be to check the website.
Yeah,
more detailed information about who's eligible will be on the website about the bursary. So yeah, and perhaps if you can't find the information on there, then just send us an email and we'll try and help you as much as we can as well. It might depend where you're coming from as well. That's the other point. So I'll pop our international office email address in the chat so that you can get in touch with us directly as well.
Thanks, Kat. Certainly for the postgraduate in dietetics at Queen Margaret, there isn't an NHS health bursary applicable to this course at all. So I suspect that for international students, that would be the case as well. But certainly worth following Kat's advice there. So Laura, you've said you're currently in year 3 of nutrition at QMU. After graduation, is it possible to apply to dietetics MSc providing that the appropriate grade is achieved? Absolutely, Laura, yes, it would be a very good route, and we certainly do have a number of nutrition graduates that apply, so yes, you would be certainly worth applying. So Rebecca, you've said, do you know if Irish students have had any trouble in the past with CORO registration? No, we have a number of Irish students every year. We have a number of Irish students certainly on the postgraduate course, and as far as I'm aware, nobody has ever had any problems with CORO registration. It's certainly something that you can look into applying for once you've got your HCPC registration at the end of the course. Helen, you're saying, are placements mainly in the Central Belt, or may you be expected to take a placement elsewhere in Scotland? When would you find out if you had been successful in getting placed? Good question. So the placements are all over Scotland, not just in the Central Belt, but obviously the health boards in Scotland that are larger tend to have more placements. So if you can imagine that Greater Glasgow and Clyde is an enormous health board, there are quite often more placements associated with those larger health boards. So, but you're absolutely right, they're not just in the Central Belt. We've obviously got 4 main cities in Scotland, so Dundee, Aberdeen, Edinburgh and Glasgow, but we've also got a number of health boards outside those areas, and you would certainly could be allocated to any of those areas. And when would you find out if you had been successful in getting a place? So everybody will be placed. That's embedded in the course. You have to have a placement in order to complete the course. So you would normally apply for your placements early in the programme, so a few weeks into the programme, and normally we would expect you to have to be pulled certainly for your A and B placements towards the end of your first semester, probably sort of November time is when we usually find out where you would be, and that would enable you enough time to find accommodation, etc. Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm just looking through all the chats. So I'm just looking at the next one. So Brona, I think it is. So you're just saying you had, in terms of entry requirements, would a BSc in biochemistry satisfy the requirements? We probably want to look at the breakdown of the modules that you looked at, but generally speaking, yes, a BSc in biochemistry in the past has certainly satisfied the requirements, so certainly worth applying. We've got Cameron next. Are interviews involved to help pick the students, or is it based on the application only? It's purely based on application. So really, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the strength of your personal statement is really key to your application and success for application. So no interviews are involved. Laura, you've just said there, I have been told funding for course fees is not always available for this course. Is this a possibility, and can we apply for a bursary or student loans while studying an MSc as we can with a BSc? I think that's probably a query for the relating to the query that Kat had mentioned before. So as I'm aware, there's no specific bursaries, but there may well be sort of career development loans, or, Kat, do you want to come in?
I was just going to say, do feel free to email the student funding team. So I'll pop their email address in the chat box there as well. Laura, did you say you are a current student at QME already? I think we've got two different Lauras in the chat. I think it's the same Laura. If so, I do believe you can get a discount for being a current undergraduate QME student. I think it's 10% discount on the fees, if that helps. But if you have any specific questions about funding and scholarships and things like that, I definitely recommend emailing studentfunding@qmu.icu.uk, and that's Bill, and he'll be able to give you some more detailed advice on that.
Thanks, Kat. I'm just moving on to the next question here from Sonda. So you've said that you have a nutrition undergraduate degree and you're currently exploring doing either a nutrition PhD or the dietetic MSc. 15 years professional experience, and wondering if there's any way to integrate a PhD with the dietetic accreditation. I'd top up the PhD with the relevant modules to allow professional registration. Sonda, I'm really sorry to say that that's just not possible for this course. In order to meet the sets and SOPs outlined by the Healthcare Professions Council, effectively for you to enable you to register as a dietitian, you need to complete the programme as it is, where it's mapped to all those curriculum requirements that are set out by the HCPC. So unfortunately, it's sort of an all or nothing with this. It's certainly something that you might want to consider doing, a sort of postgraduate entry into dietetics to become that vocational degree for dietetics, and then consider maybe doing a PhD later, or some people decide to do their PhD first and then doing their accredited programme to become a dietitian. But certainly it's not something to come across in terms of integrating the two. So I hope that helps there. Now, where are we? Helen has said, by when would we know if we were successful in getting a place on the course? So normally it would be in the springtime that we start to inform our applicants as to whether they've been successful or not. Sometimes it can be a little later. We usually have send out our first round of offers, and then it may well be that there's a waiting list for any individuals that have declined their offers. We then might be able to offer to to people on a waiting list effectively. So I would expect that you'd probably hear by sort of April time, generally speaking, if you've been successful. And then on to Sasha now. Would a BSc Human Biology and Nutrition satisfy requirements? I'm currently in my 4th year graduating. Is that graduating this year or next? You've graduated or you're graduating, I'm not sure. So would be applying before, okay, so you're graduating next year. Before you've received your final grade, and yes, you can absolutely apply. I think I recognise that programme from previous years, so I'm pretty certain that was satisfy requirements. I suspect that you've done some biochemistry and physiology, so from memory, I think that you would probably satisfy requirements. And yes, it's fine to apply before you have your final grade. We would, if you obviously were successful, it would be a conditional offer based on your final grade. Ian, you're saying that you've currently possess a BSc in nutrition from Australia. So just to confirm, as I had heard earlier on the postgrad, diploma will be removed. Hence, if I were to enroll under an MSc in dietetics, decide that this course is not for me, does that mean I will not be able to exit with a postgraduate diploma? No, as I've mentioned before, it's an all or nothing. We've changed the structure of the programme for this year, so the postgraduate diploma is no longer an option, I'm afraid. So I think I've reached the end of the questions. I don't know if anybody's got any other questions, or Kat, if you've got anything you wanted to add.
Not particularly. I was just going to say that if anyone does think of any questions after the session, do feel free to pop us an email and we can get back to you one-to-one. And we will also be sending out a follow-up email to everyone. And if there's any slides that you want a copy of, or if you'd like to have a copy of this recording as well, if you didn't catch anything, do just let us know and we can send that out to you as well. We've got one last question as well. How long do you have to decide whether or not you want to accept the offer?
That's probably a question for admissions, if I'm entirely honest. I do know that some people do take some time to decide. So if you're obviously given the offer, it's nice to know whether you're coming or not. But we appreciate that it does sometimes take longer for some individuals to decide. So I suppose that depends on your own circumstances there. And Sasha said, will placements continue if COVID-19 is still affecting the normal running of courses? So that's a very good question, Sasha. Things have been affected, placements have been affected by COVID-19, but we've put a number of things in place this year as we move through the pandemic to recover placements that were displaced as a result of the full lockdown that we encountered. So this year is really about recovery. I think by the time you guys get back, by the time you guys apply and enter into the 2021 cohort, you will have a much more robust and COVID-proof placement system in place. So certainly what I've outlined in my presentation here, I suppose it comes with a caveat that things are subject to change. Everything, unfortunately, is slightly subject to change at the moment with everything that's going on in the world. But certainly feel rest assured that COVID hasn't necessarily caused any problems for the cohort that have just started their master's degree. So we are pushing through, and we're looking to the future. So certainly, I think by next year things will be much easier sailing, so to speak. So I'm just moving on there to Sonda regarding entry requirements. You said that your BSc should include modules on physiology and biochemistry. You have a degree in physiology and nutrition. although there was biochemistry content, we didn't do a module on biochem specifically. Could that be problematic? I think that you're probably best to send your transcript and we can have a little look, or you can email admissions and give some more details about the programme and where you studied and what you studied, and we can have a little look at what you did. And then Sasha, would it be beneficial for our applications to apply ASAP rather than nearer the deadline? Sasha, you can apply ASAP or nearer the deadline. It doesn't matter, we treat all our applicants exactly the same. So, and generally speaking, I don't necessarily get to the applications until February anyway. So, yeah, they're all applicants are treated with equity. And Kath, oh, so sorry, Kat, you said send your transcript to admissions. Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know if anybody's got any other burning questions that they have.
If people don't have any other questions just now, like I said, do feel free to message us after the session if there's anything else that you think of. Both of us would be more than happy to have a chat with you again. And just wanted to say thank you so much, Alison, for running the session today. That was really informative. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. And yeah, as I say, please do get in touch if there's anything else.